Used to steal my dad's camera when I was 9.
Yeah.
Even if you cost twice as much, they'll come to you.
What's Milan like? Tell me what the fashion world's like.
No, well, now it's very different. We're talking about AI and what's happening because it's really exciting.
Hello and welcome to the Camera Central podcast. And today we have a very, very different kind of person in our podcast studio. We're bringing in the wonderful Fab. So Fab, take it away. Introduce yourself.
Take it away. So my name is Fabrizia Costa. I am originally Italian, half Italian. Anyway, I won't go into the
That's fine.
multiple nations involved in my family, but I grew up in England and I went away and then I came back again and now I am here to stay. So I live in the UK. I live near Bristol, and I don't know why I'm different, but I do different things. Maybe.
Yeah, you certainly do. I think we're focusing quite a bit today on obviously your photography, and then we're going to talk a little bit about the course that you're bringing out as well. And I know you're focused quite a bit on personal branding as well, which is quite interesting. I don't think we've ever had anyone talk about that before on our podcast. It's normally about their type of photography, but we're going to come on to that with you as well. So where did your photography journey start for you?
All right. Okay. So I went back to Italy in my early 20s to work with a very famous architect. And because I'd done architecture interior design in London. And then I worked for about a year, and then I fell in love with the fashion photographer.
Okay. Right.
Going back though, I used to steal my dad's camera when I was 9.
Yeah.
I started taking photos with his Nikkor mat, which I still have.
Sure.
And when I was 12, I actually had my first portrait published on the back of a book of quite a famous author who was a friend of my father.
Oh, right.
I took a picture of him on holiday and he loved it so much that he put on his book.
Right.
I was really proud of that.
Oh, cool.
But it's always been my hobby.
Yeah.
And then I got into the fashion photography, ran a studio with this boyfriend for 5 years, did a lot of work in the fashion industry, but I ended up on the other side of the fence. I was an editor. I was an art director.
Yeah.
And so I worked with the best photographers at the time. And we're talking Milan in the 80s. I'm very old.
Amazing.
So so it's like big names and big productions. And I worked for, different magazines and I did a lot of traveling and a lot of shooting and a lot of productions there. Yeah. So I learned a lot about photography from these photographers because I basically had a good few years of workshops.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, it's the ultimate
amazing
training,
work,
isn't it?
and I didn't really. So I did that, but then the boyfriend didn't last, but I got married and I had kids, and when you have kids, you cannot travel 6 months out of a year. Right. So I had to sort of give it up. Yeah. And I kept photography as a hobby. So I was doing a lot of work with mums, with school, with, just taking photos everywhere, without getting paid or doing any of that. Yeah. Fast forward another 10, 15 years, we moved to Austria. Okay. And my kids were growing up, and I was going like, now, what do I want to do when I grow up? Right?
Yeah.
Type of thing.
Course, yeah.
What is the thing that I was in my 50s, right? And what is the thing I want to do that, because now I got to do something.
Yeah,
and
sort
so
of a release of freedom,
started
so to speak.
my photography business then, which was in 2011. Yeah. And I was in Tyrol, Innsbruck. Okay. Now, fashion, photography, and Austria. Yeah. You cannot put. I'm sorry to all the Austrians, but it is a grammatical error.
Yeah, sure.
In the same sentence. It's like we always have a joke that putting like my brother and fast in the same sentence does not work. Right. So in the same way as like there is no fashion photography of any sort of great kind in Tyrol. So I decided that I wanted to shoot real people. I had had enough of that kind of world anyway. And I love portraits and documentary photography and all of that. So that's what I started to do.
Yeah, brilliant. I think you've touched on a few points, funnily enough, that have come up in some of our stewards at the back of the room will advocate for this.
Hey.
The story of how you get hold of your first camera is always interesting. isn't it?
Yes.
Because like you said, you stole yours
I
from
was
your father,
obsessed.
right?
Absolutely
You know, I
obsessed.
remember for me it was the you used to be able to go in the local post office and they had a big bucket full of disposable cameras that you could buy for 50p, and that was kind of how it
You're a lot
started.
younger than me.
But that for me was how it started, and I think Stuart has a very similar kind of story. You know, you're sort of borrowing from other
Yeah.
people and then drawing inspiration. I think you take that through life as well, don't you? That you're borrowing from other people constantly.
My father.
Wales and West is, of course, back again this year, where you're going to get the chance to check out some awesome technology. Also, learn from some creative individuals about AI, astrophotography, social media, and everything else in between. Getting the chance to not only play, but also learn as well. And, well, just have a whole heap of fun. This is, of course, at the ICC down Newport, and make sure you book your tickets now between the 19th and the 21st of June. I'll see you there.
It's really strange that he ever let me use his camera, because it was not typical of him to let me touch his stuff. You know, like he had this state-of-the-art camera at the time. It was a really good one with good lenses and all the rest of it. Because I didn't understand any of it, but it looked amazing. And he did. He let me use it. He taught me how to use it. He told me what to do. Of course, it's like the manual mode. That's all you had, and the little thing, and you had to line up to focus and all of that.
You were kind of forced to have to do it properly.
Absolutely.
In the right way.
And then you have 24, 36.
Yeah, 100%.
So you have to be careful what to do. But I remember I was absolutely obsessed. So every time we went on holiday, every time we went somewhere, I could use it. And then he let me borrow it once I was about 16, 17, and I had it with me. It was my brother and a friend, and we were in a car accident.
Right.
And when the car crashed, it was a bad accident.
Right.
And I realized I was okay. I shouted to my brother, "Are you okay?"
Yeah.
And then it was like, "Where's the camera? Where's the camera?" The people came, the ambulance came, and I was going, "Where's the camera? My father's going to kill me.
Like
Where's
priorities.
the camera?
No matter life or death, the camera is the priority.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I totally get it. I totally like gravitate with that. I think Stuart does too. Yeah, absolute. Every time we get off a train, isn't it? Camera, got it. Bus, camera, got it. It doesn't matter where we're going. Every time,
it's the baby.
It is a second child. It's another child to you. So, you said you were in the fashion photography sort of world, so to speak, and obviously Milan being quite well known for that kind of
it was the place to
still
be.
Is, and it very much still is in a lot of respects. I know a few people that are out there currently and actually picking up work and doing quite well. So what's that like? What's Milan like? Tell me what the fashion world's like.
Well, now it's very different. Okay, so now actually I would not know, and I know it's quite difficult. It's magazines are no more basically, and it's really not the same. Definitely not the same money, not the same productions, not the same opportunities that we had then. I was making a lot of money when I was doing that.
Well done, you.
but and also there were like these, incredible photographers at the time, and unfortunately a couple of them just passed away, like Barbieri and Fabrizio Toscani, and which is, it's kind of like end of the era. You kind of go, these people, they were older than me, obviously, so now they're all kind of going, and but they were. Of course, I didn't work with them all the time, but there were a lot of photographers coming from all over the world to Milan to work. And so, you learn from so many different masters, basically, and each one has their own way of doing things. So you're really picking up so many things, and then you can sort of say, okay, this kind of is how I would do it. This is how I would do it. And you sort of integrate it in your own thing. So when I was doing... when I started my own photography business in Austria, and I didn't speak German very well at all, right? So it was all English, and I didn't know anybody, and I didn't have a studio, and I didn't have any money to have a studio, but also I didn't really want a studio, so I love doing things out there.
Yeah, I do.
And so I started off offering what now is quite common, but at the time nobody had heard of it. It was like model for a day experiences. And so it was about doing a shoot like a fashion shoot.
Yeah.
So I had a makeup artist, hair stylist, what we count thing, and just doing a big thing of it. And it's a lot of fun. You know, you are a model for a day. And then the problem is I don't have a model. It's a girl or a woman who doesn't know what to do with her hands. You know? So then you have to, obviously guide them, direct them. And that's what.
Sure.
That's what taking a portrait is, really. It's not about the clicking.
100%. It's an experience in itself, isn't it? You know, the camera is second to that.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I mean, so if we go to your work then, in terms of, you know, your portraits, are there any particular photos? I mean, I'm asking you a question that I know every photographer struggles with, so don't worry too much. You can say one or two or three. Any particular photos that you're particularly fond of, you're particularly proud of, like, wow, I took that, or any standout moments for
Anything I took yesterday.
Yeah.
Your best work is always your last
I agree.
work.
Yeah,
right?
100%.
But I also understand branding. So if you look at my pages or at my things, my branding is a picture of a girl, which has a little story behind it.
Okay.
And it's her face with these flowers, and she had angel wings. You can see it in some of the photos and some not. I've used it a lot on different covers, on my logo, on my thing. And it's not because, well, I used to do children and portraits and families and things like that, and which I don't do anymore. But I also understand that there are iconic, and I teach business, so I teach branding, and this is just a tip. There are some iconic images that every photographer has, and they should stay for a long time. Because now I know that a lot of people who know me, when they see that photo, it's like me. You know, it's like, that is my brand. You know? And so there are some photos that I will use over and over again. Because they are sort of part of my brand. They're the iconic images on. And every time we do, now I work with my husband, who is a designer. And because I am passionate about branding, branding your own business, branding yourself, and he does the design of it. So I used to teach this for 10 years. I was teaching the theory of it and the strategy of it, and now we actually can put a design onto it as well
when everything comes together.
And so we always find like the best images from a photographer, use those to actually anchor their brand. And so you don't have to, of course, you're showing your work and you're putting out your pictures all the time, you know, new photos on your Instagram, social media, and all that. But then there is value in using the same images over and over again to do I don't know, certain projects, certain covers, certain things that are attached to your logo or, you know, your brand.
That's right.
to strengthen
it's sort of that what comes to mind is I've put out some images on Instagram, for example, and people will book me on the basis of one photo, and I go, okay, so then I'll use that for the homepage. You know, that's kind of how it works. And then, you know, for me,
those are the most valuable, you know.
Because, you know, I think one photo just can kind of speak for itself rather than having to need to be explained a lot of the time. And so you're right, when it comes to personal branding, it's about creating staple images that say, this is me and this is what I do, without you needing to explain entirely what they involve, if that makes sense. So in terms of personal branding then, you know, what are the, obviously I'm not going to ask you to give away your advice entirely for free in this respect, but what are the top three things that every photographer should be looking at with their personal branding? What's the first things that you would look at?
So for your own business branding, you know, the top three things, actually, if you go to my page, FabriziaCosta.com, there's a page called Goodies, and that takes you to
we're looking at
there are different things in there, and I think one of the things is a guide called On Branding. I think it's there. If not, I'll put it in tomorrow.
That's fine.
Yes, it is. I can see that. So On Branding is free, and it gives you I think it's 10 or 11 things that you should look at in terms of design, in terms of communication, tone of voice, what you want to do. The biggest mistakes I can tell you is I can see photographers think their logo is their brand, which it is not. And then they forget everything else. So being consistent in, for instance, your fonts, you should have 2 fonts and stick to them. And one is for text and it should be very legible. One is for titles and things, and it can be fancy.
Yeah.
The mistakes is like, it's Christmas and we're gonna use a Christmas font.
Yeah, I know. It's always
or
that
colors,
cheesy font. Yeah.
And it's like, it doesn't matter. You can't. Your brand is not Christmas. Your brand is you. So it's like being consistency is absolutely not only key, but it is the hardest thing.
Yes.
Because photographers are creative and they get bored.
Yes.
And they go like, oh, I've seen this thing 1,000 times. I can't do it the same way.
Well, you think an idea is really great, and then 2 days later you think,
like,
yeah.
So it's and aside from having, like, we rebrand photographers, we do a lot of that as well. And so of course, if you have somebody doing it for you it's their job, you're gonna get guidelines, you're gonna get you're gonna get a slap on the hand when you're out of whack. And I go like, what did you post yesterday?
Yes. And do you know what, I've gone through
to do that.
I've gone through something kind of similar recently with I have someone who helps me with my personal branding, and it's just about started to anyway, and I'm about to delve into that next week. And the one thing I find that's really useful is for someone else to sort of tear you apart and then put you back together. And you don't realize the value of that until you've gone through it. And so it's trying to push people to go, guys, let yourself, be sort of fed to the sharks in some way, shape or form, and then be reassembled. And it actually really helps.
It is a journey. It is, because it is about defining your identity. As a business, of course, but in our case, as a photographer, as your individual style and personality, because you're not a multinational or a big company with loads of employees. It's us usually. It's 1-2 people in a studio, or it's usually a 1-man, 2, 3, 5-man band, and it's at often, the most. So it's about your identity, and that way, we're really kind of digging in, figuring out who you are, what makes you different, what makes you unique, what are your strong points. You cannot see them. There is no way. We don't see our weaknesses. We don't see our strong points. We need someone else. So whether it's a coach, whether it's, the branding work we do or whatever, you need someone else to tell you, this is great. And this is, I have Mark.
To sort of say,
it's wonderful to have somebody who understands photography to tell me like what's good and what's bad.
Very, very lucky. It's so I have a marketing lady who helps me, and she's phenomenal. She's wonderful.
It's so important.
But it's so important, like I said, to just have someone to just kind of just go, no. Don't do that. Why did you post that today? I don't know. I thought it was a great idea. And it really does help. It kind of takes some getting used to at first, so to speak, but it really does help, because then it allows you to kind of create a focus on your own stuff. Because a lot of what I do here, so I'm the social media manager for here, and Stuart's the videographer for here, and sometimes it's very hard to self-critique. And it's very hard to sort of go, well, what am I not doing right? Because I seem to be doing everything right by other people's opinions, but those people aren't professionals. In that respect, so you're absolutely on the money. 100%.
And also you have some guidelines. Whoever does this for you, with you, will give you. It's like having a track to follow. You don't have to reinvent where you're going every day or figuring out how to do stuff. You have this kind of guidelines about how to show up consistently in a certain way. And and if it's done well, then you're gonna feel very much at home in it. And also, a good brand, work on your brand, will we'll put you 5 years ahead. Absolutely, and drop you right there. It's not how you are now, because how you are now is how you are now. Nobody cares. I mean, you're not going anywhere fast, but it's where you want to be. And so to make you look like what you're going to be now means that you'll get there a lot faster, because the perception of the public as who you are it's going to be like, oh wow, look at that one, he's up there.
It's so right, because I think that the one thing that I didn't realize, I do know it, but I need someone to tell me, if that makes sense, is going, well, it's not about creating pretty pictures necessarily, it's about serving the client.
Absolutely.
And what they want.
That's what they buy.
And then selling them that solution to their problem.
Yeah.
So for me, I work in corporate, so I do a lot of business headshots. I do a lot of corporate charity events and that kind of stuff. And so for me, what they're trying to solve is, one, they need a reliable photographer because they've probably been through about 12 already.
Yes.
Two, they need someone that's going to be able to create images that reflect their brand. So my photography often services other people's brand image. So instead of just selling them pretty pictures, I've got to sell them the solution to their problem.
Yeah, exactly.
And I think a lot of photographers, they sort of skip that part. They go into business thinking, I create amazing photos. You do, but can you sell them?
Yeah.
That's why this is
and
important.
Having your own style is great, and people think, oh, I gotta find my style, You don't find your style, it evolves. 100%. And it takes years.
Yes.
And that is for like a private client. So if you do portraits, families, weddings, all that kind of stuff, you can do your style.
Yeah.
But when it comes to brand photography and like we were talking, I have a course coming up right in a few weeks about brand photography, branding shoots.
Yeah.
We call them that. And there's many different ways of doing that. But then you are working to a brief.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
And so when you're working to a brief, it's not about how fancy you're going to make your photos. They need to be just right.
Yeah.
And they need to be malleable. They need to be photos that the client or their agency or their design team, whatever it could be.
Just about.
Camera Centre UK do both new, used, old cameras and everything else in between. So make sure you go over to cameracenteruk.com to check out the latest and greatest in camera technology, but also the old stuff as well. Anyway, let's continue.
100%.
Can do stuff with. So there are like some very basic, very simple, important principles to know how to, and those are very sellable. And branding shoots are on the up. I just talked about it in a class at the Societies Convention. I'll be talking about it at the Wales on West. I'm doing this course. We may be doing a live workshop in around here somewhere.
Yeah, well, that's in the plan, in the
so
motion.
That is one of my specialties, and I've been doing brand shooting since 2011. It's one of the first things, as well as the models for a day. I did that because I love documentary stuff and working on location, and way before they were a thing. But so I've got a pretty good system now.
Do you find with branding shoots, and this is because I sort of do that myself with all the corporate clients that I work with, because even though it's suit and tie, a lot of it is trying to reflect their brand in a certain way. So I do everything from internet-based companies through to corporate office typical stuff, and that kind of stuff. Do you find that every shoot that you do is different in branding photography?
Absolutely.
It's not just a one-trick pony every time.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's what I find interesting and fun. And it's, there is the personal branding, which could be, the entrepreneur, especially women now.
Yeah.
And but it could be the lawyer, the dentist or something. But, then there's shops, there's bakers, there's hairdressers, there's artisans, there's all sorts of things.
And those ones I find are way more interesting to take on, actually.
Yeah, and then that's a different type of
you
branding.
sort of train yourself, like if you're a corporate photographer, to master the CEO portrait, for example, because you're going to get 100 of those. But it's really interesting when you get someone who's, like I did one for a cafe owner once a couple of years ago, but it was like chocolate.
It's great
stuff, and I'm like, cool, okay. It's so many different things that you can think about. Right. So, and I think a lot of photographers look at business photography or personal branding as kind of quite boring and quite dull.
Yeah, it's not.
Actually, it's really not.
The branding shoot, it's called Branding Lab, and we did 2 live ones in Italy last year. That's when I started to actually make it into a course.
Yeah. So
the first one we did in an architectural studio, like design studio in Milan. And so it was all design, they had these like designer taps and and different materials to put on walls and floors and things, so all these textures and all these things and lights and plus the people who work there, obviously. So I like it because it's a mixture of portraits and macro and interiors, and there's all of the, you go from a 24 to a 200 if
Yeah,
you want,
yeah, 100%.
depending on the space.
So I came from a wedding photography background. That's how I started.
Yeah, that's
right?
the best people
and
are
honestly,
wedding people.
Yeah, 100%. Totally. See, Stu, I told you, didn't I? Absolutely.
Because you can shoot anywhere.
Because we can shoot anything as well.
Anything and anywhere. You do the details. You do the.
Yeah, and
you're
eventually
used to
you get to a point with weddings where you just go, enough.
Enough.
And I got to that point last year and I killed off weddings completely. My sister's wedding was the last one that I did. I've said this on the podcast before, but I then went corporate, particularly after COVID and everything, where wedding stopped and, and sort of just rebranded myself. So hence why I'm going through this kind of new journey, so to speak. And, yeah, anybody who does weddings can literally shoot anything.
This tomorrow, yeah. If you know how really and how to deliver, how to there's the part of like contracts, licenses, all that kind of stuff that people don't know.
Yeah.
And so that's really important. And also how to shoot, how to deliver, how to do your offers in a way when because somebody will look for. Clients don't know this. They will look for like photographer. They call you and they say, "Oh, I need some photos for my social media." And you go like, "Well, my half day rate is or whatever." But there's a much better way of coming up as the expert in this. You don't have a half day rate. You have packages. You have this whole thing. And so the next photographer who just has a half day rate lower than you, they're gonna go with him. But if you come across as the person that has a really good system for them and they know nothing about it and they go like, whoa, wait, this guy has it,
because education
and that's
is key,
how
right?
you and that's how you can stand out 100%. And just offer and even if you cost twice as much, they'll come to you because to them they take it off their taxes. It's not an expense.
Sure.
It's like most of these companies are making money.
And I find
they will be making money off the back of your photos
the people that normally book you. How are we for time? Okay, cool. The people that normally book you, I tend to find it's not their money they're spending either. It's normally their boss's money.
But even if it's their money, in terms of maybe personal businesses or smaller businesses or personal branding, it's still something, at the end of the year, either you pay this money in taxes or you have 100 new photos to use on your social media,
100%.
And I say the same to photographers because at the end of the year, either you pay your money in taxes or you spend it and do a course that allows you to make more money 100%. Or come and do coaching with me or, whoever. Investing in your education is not money. It's money that has the highest return on investment. And you would be giving it to the government anyway.
It's that sort of age
It's legal tax evasion, tax avoidance. Legal tax avoidance.
It's I always say, and one thing that our directors here have always taught us as salespeople is you've got to spend money to make money.
Absolutely.
And it's absolutely true. And that's one thing I learned from Camera Center actually was, that I've been here 6 years and I've learned, I remember my first day here at Camera Center and I watched the boss sell a camera to somebody and he sold it without even talking about the camera. It was the most interesting thing I'd ever seen. And I clocked that. And because it wasn't about, how much money you were spending. It was about the value you were getting back from what you were buying. And that's very much true when it comes to brand marketing. And
but any kind of education, business education. Because photographers are very, very keen to go on shooting workshops. And coming home with great photos to put on their website. Let alone that photo was set up with models and the hanging gardens of Babylon in the background, where they never go again or whatever, by the teacher. And you just shot a few shots and you come back with that. And yes, you've learned some techniques which you may or may not use or use successfully but that doesn't make you more money. It doesn't bring you more clients.
It doesn't.
It also makes you have the exact same photos about another 20 people.
Absolutely. Absolutely. But you hope that they come from different places and nobody notices.
100%.
But the point is there's photographers become photographers because they love photography. They are creatives. They are artists if they're good. Not because they're entrepreneurs. Otherwise, they'd be making pizzas somewhere, right? So that part is what doesn't come natural. Photography we get better every year. You look back 3 years ago and you go like, ooh, that's why I said your best photos are the ones you took yesterday. But you spend hours shooting, editing, figuring out this new, software and this and that, and getting better at what you do and producing
100%.
better photos.
Yeah.
You don't do that with business. You
Yes.
have no clue now. You have no clue next year. You have a little bit more clue 2 years from now because you've banged your nose on some hard facts and gone to get a couple of tutorials, but you still can't put it together.
Yeah, I think, do you know what? And oddly, it works the opposite way around, I found as well. Actually, some people are great at business and their photos are rubbish, and yet they're getting booked left, right, and center.
Absolutely.
Because they know how to sell them.
But because your clients know, can we say, well, I won't say at all about photography. Your clients know nothing about photography. So, they'll show you a picture of a sunset going, look at what a wonderful.
Yeah,
whatever.
they do.
This is amazing.
Every time. Yeah.
Or whatever, a picture of like a blurry grandchild in orange.
And you sort of go, that's great.
Because they see the child, and oh, it's so wonderful.
Yeah.
So they know nothing. B, they don't buy your photography. They buy you and they buy your service.
Yes, that's right.
And then if you make them fall in love with your products, they'll spend even more buying those.
Yes.
Right? So if you print, you're going to make, that's another thing I teach a lot.
100%.
So, the clients, a good workshop will make you feel better, and you're going to love your photos more. You're going to learn something, make better photos.
Yes.
It makes zero difference to your client.
And I think our customers are really going to value all of this as well. I really do. Even a lot of our market, the people that are watching at home, are not necessarily even wanting to become professionals, but they're amateur people, serial hobbyists and stuff like that. There is a real, for use of a better word, a real graft to setting up a photography business. And and I think you've shown all that today, honestly, so far. So you're coming in to the Wales and West Photography Show.
Yes, that'd be fun.
Yeah. So, and I believe it's your first time with us.
I came to visit.
Okay.
Last year.
Yeah. What did you think?
Yeah, I loved it.
Yeah.
So I met up with Harry, and we talked and showed me around, and it was really nice.
So
really enjoyed it.
Any little teaser you can give our people at home about what you might be talking about on stage?
Yes. So I think I'm doing 3 things.
Okay.
We're still defining.
Still in discussion
because
at the
also
moment,
I have thought of a little sort of surprise thing, which I'm not going to talk about now.
Cool.
We'll talk again.
Good. You'll have to come to the show to find out.
Yeah. Just come to the show to find out. But I'll be talking about branding shoots.
Okay.
I'll be talking about AI, which is another big thing that I am talking about. I did a masterclass at the societies, and I'm really excited about this. At the photography show, I'm on a discussion panel.
Okay.
With Scott Kilby, with John Nassari, and with Nick Donham, who's the only one I don't know personally. So I may have, I don't think that's his name. Who's one of the big guys in the Association of Photographers.
Right. Okay. Yeah.
So we're talking about AI and what's happening, because it's really exciting.
Yes. It is. I agree.
And a lot of people are very wary or worried about it, but I have a very specific opinion on it, and I think I'm going to have an online class on this in the next couple of weeks.
I think it's a really interesting talking point, isn't it, AI, that because we've dabbed in a little bit on it, haven't we, in terms of we haven't done a full talk on
I can do a whole podcast on that.
I know we could, and we won't go too much into detail. It's a very interesting topic, and I personally, just to get it out there, think that it's only going to be a benefit in a lot of respects, so long as we allow it to be a benefit.
It's a huge opportunity. Yeah.
100%.
It will also put some people out of business.
Yeah.
But that's
the way the world works.
But it's also, and I want to say this, it's also something that, and whoever will hear my things online will hear more, but it's not necessary for a photographer to embrace it for image making.
Yes.
Okay, so I see a lot. This is something I want to say, because people say, "Oh, you're going to be left behind if you don't learn how to use Midjourney, if you don't learn how to use Stable Diffusion, or all that kind of stuff." Not true.
Yeah,
you can definitely do photography, and I think real photography will benefit from being real photography. And making a brand choice, which is what I have done. But on the other hand, having AI to use for writing, editing, checking things, and all the other, like,
it helps.
What I call the heavy lifting of everyday business stuff.
I think it helps fill in the weak points. I think that really is where it's very beneficial, but also for things like speeding up workflow. And I'm terrible at writing, I'll be honest with you, so I allow AI to help, but I don't allow it to take over.
No, exactly.
I go, right, what does it say? Okay, oh, that's a great idea, put that in.
That's a great assistant.
That's it is the ultimate photo assistant, if you can allow it to be that. But we'll come back to that another time.
We'll come back to that another time. No, but I want to say, because I did this talk, and people then commented like, "Oh, that is so reassuring."
Yes.
And I think photographers need to be reassured. This is not here to steal your job.
Yes.
You do need to know what you're doing, and you do need to understand how to use it.
Absolutely.
So I'll leave it at that. Yes. So anyway, we'll talk about that at
so you're doing well. You're doing Wales and West. So obviously you're going to be on our main stage, I believe.
Yeah.
So we are looking forward to having you. It's going to be great. We've had, for those people at home watching, Wales and West is now in its fourth year. And we started it from fifth year.
No, fifth year.
Oh, fourth year. Very funny. That was good. So fourth year. Yes. Right. Edit, cut, slip. And we've made it bigger and bigger and bigger each year, and it's got more and more and more popular, and we are going hard on it this year, definitely.
Yeah, and I'm really excited about it, because when I came last year, and I thought, I really want to go and see this, because I moved from Austria to Bath and then to Portishead.
Right.
So I see Newport right there.
Yeah.
From my house, and I think, like, if there's a community, there's something. Cardiff is very close. It's closer to me than London, and I think it's really good that there is a strong something going on, exciting here, and I want to be, I'm close enough to be part of it.
Yeah, and what we've noticed is there are now smaller shows cropping up around the country, sort of off the back of, I think, what Wales and West did. Because originally it was just the photography show, and it's nice to have local smaller shows going on that can expand and grow and do all that kind of stuff. But it's also about bringing community together, and people can go, and our show is free as well, and they can attend and they can take something back with them. Come and see Fab at the Wales and West Photography Show. It's going to be a really great event. It's the 19th to the 21st of June at the ICC in Newport. And so, if you like this podcast, don't forget to like, follow and subscribe if you want to see more. That's normally Stuart's line. I've stole it from him this time. And we'll see you in the next podcast. Thank you.
Bye.
Cool. Brilliant. Okay.
Should we have